everyone. This week you read the article Medicine and Genetic Research. We're going to look at how connectors can help us see the organization of information in the text and to find the main ideas. So if we look at the first paragraph and we read the first two sentences to help us get an idea of what the text is going to be about. Scientists have long known that specific genes are associated with a number of serious diseases and birth defects. So we have diseases and birth defects, and we also have specific genes. Scientists have used this knowledge, what knowledge, diseases, birth defects, and specific genes, to develop tests to identify defective genes. So we know that the main idea here, what it's going to talk about, is specific genes, diseases, and birth defects, and that we have tests to identify these defective genes that cause disease and birth defects. Now, if we go on to the second paragraph, it immediately starts with these tests. Well, what tests? We need to go back and look. Those tests for diseases and birth defects in the different genes. And then we jump and we see the word however. These tests are very important, but however. The tests, in other words these, introduce complex ethical issues. And this is our main idea here. The tests also introduce complex ethical issues. And we can see first, and then we see, for example, it gives us the first ethical issue, and it gives us an example. We continue on. Second, in the case of, again an example. So it gives us two reasons and an example for each. Paragraph 3 starts with the word unfortunately. So we know it's going to be different from what was in paragraph 2. For some genetic diseases, there's no treatment, which gives rise to even more complex ethical issues. So this idea, the idea in paragraph 3, continues the idea in paragraph 2, ethical issues. And we see some may, some people, for others. We see a question, would patients want to know that they're going to die young or become very sick if there's no treatment? This is an example of a complex ethical issue. And we see the answers, some may, for others. Paragraph 4. Genetic testing is the first step. Well, we've talked about genetic testing. So we read on and we come across the next step. Most researchers hope that the next step will be gene therapy that repairs or replaces the defective gene. So here we have our main idea. Now, it's such an important main idea that it repeats itself. This would mean, for example, and it returns to the example about the BRCA patients and what that means for them. As we continue to paragraph 5, it continues at the end of the 20th century. Researchers began to develop treatments for a variety of life-threatening genetic diseases. So, they're beginning to use this knowledge. The early results seemed very encouraging, and consequently, what is consequently? As a result, people with genetic diseases became hopeful they would soon see a cure. So in other words, we have all of this. People with genetic diseases became hopeful that they'd see a cure. Paragraph 6. along with these early achievements, and we see, however, there were considerable problems and limitations. So we have to read now to find out what were the problems and what were the limitations. And here in the middle of the paragraph, we see addition. So this is one problem or limitation, and here we have another one. Paragraph 7. In spite of these setbacks, and again we have the word however, 3 basic technical challenges stood in the way of their progress. So we have to stop here, and we have to say, this is our main idea. But we need to stop. Their progress. What progress? The scientists' progress, the treatment progress. There, the progress of the scientists. There is plural, so we know it's scientists. And then again, first, second, finally. So we know that there are 3 basic technical challenges, first, second, and finally. In paragraph 8, we continue on. After years of research and trials, scientists have made considerable progress in solving these problems. And what do we have here? We see many, 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 many examples, but there's no new idea. So we sometimes need to go down to the end and see if this works. These, in other words, all of these examples, were major achievements, but they were particularly exciting because the treatments are for major diseases that affect large numbers of people. So now we've got a major achievement, and they're exciting because the treatments are for major diseases that affect large numbers of people. So we have to look and say, what were those major diseases? Well, I see Parkinson's here, and I see hemophilia, so that we've got at least 2 that were important, that were major diseases. And here we get to the final paragraph, and we know that this usually sums up and gives us the main idea of the whole text. So let's look at it together. All of these positive results have revived the public's interest in gene therapy. But it's not a good idea to stop here and say, positive results, people are happy. We need to continue. Many researchers and scientists have renewed their belief in its enormous potential to treat killer diseases like cancer, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, and CVD. We've got our word. However, they are now more careful to warn patients and the public that many effective gene therapies may still be years or decades in the future. So now we have to stop and ask ourselves and say, and put this first sentence together with the last sentence. So even though there are positive and good results, we have to be careful because many of the effective gene therapies are still a long way off. So by working this way, we can use our connectors and our knowledge about the way the information is organized in the text to identify our main ideas.